One of the Psalms that has been pretty precious to me lately, and I think it would tie in with probably what was shared in the opening quite well. It's a psalm of trusting in the Lord. It's Psalms 3, a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom, his son. David had many enemies in his day. People that were against him, people that he was even trying to help that turned against him. You think of his first introduction with Saul was as his musician to try to help Saul deal with his evil spirits and things. In return, he was in fear of his life from Saul himself a lot. And here it says he was fleeing from Absalom, his son. Even his own family had turned against him. And his question to the Lord is, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. Many there be which say of my soul, there is no help for him in God. Apparently they thought that for whatever reason that David was beyond God's help. There was just no more help for him. But he comes right back and he says, but thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of mine head. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. Selah. The fact of the matter was that even though it appeared like maybe there was no help for David, the Lord was still hearing his prayers. And I think that's encouraging. I laid me down and slept, and I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. And that was David's comfort, that the Lord was still near to him in spite of what everybody else's opinion was there. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. That would be a lot of people, 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. If there ever seems like there would be a reason to be afraid, that looks to me like a pretty valid reason. But he again cries out to the Lord in verse 7, Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for thou hast smitten all mine enemies upon the cheekbone. Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongeth unto the Lord. Thy blessing is upon thy people. Selah. Sorry, that didn't use up a lot of time.
My biological father was born and raised by a large mineral bath. And the depth of the water was only, I would guess, maximum 3-4 feet. And yet, when there was a windy storm or weather, the waves were so big that it was unbelievable to survive. If anybody was found in that water in a floating object like a boat or small ship, by the way, they didn't use it there because that was a mineral bath, not something for swimming, not even for fishing, although there might have been some fish. But in any case, a strong wind would make it very dangerous. And that was one thing that I learned from my ancestors, more from my grandfather than from my father as a child. Later on, when I was on that island, the prison, there was a story among the more experienced prisoners, and more so from the guards. So I don't know how much truth is in that, or maybe it was just a scary story to discourage the prisoners from trying to escape by the water, because the nearest village or town was on another island, only 2.5 miles away. And a good swimmer in the still sea water could make it. But the story was that when there is wind, the air right above the water becomes so salty and so mixed with the seawater that human lungs cannot survive longer than a few minutes. So I don't know if the story that we heard today is in a way similar. These stories that I heard, maybe more or less believable, maybe not. I did not experience any of that. But what we heard from the book today, I don't have any doubts that if the boat or the ship in which they were is filling with water and they're sinking, I never had that much faith not to be afraid of something like that. And yet the Lord said, "O ye of little faith." So I wonder what is expected of me. What is the Lord teaching me? Or these days, my health condition is so variable, and there are some days or some nights when I feel that I'm kind of on the verge between life and death. And I don't know what to pray for. Healing, or quick end, or just to pray for faith and reliance on the Lord. Lord, thy good pleasure be done. Keep me in thy grace, keep me in thy loving care, and thy will be done. And then, if that was the situation at night, in the morning I wake up, all the symptoms seem to be vanished away, and I feel fresh and healthy and strong. Well, strong to my terms, not any young people, and healthy, and so on. So, trusting the Lord, trusting, obeying, loving and adoring the Lord, and all that the Lord brings our way, including, or maybe especially so, brothers, sisters, fellow believers, neighbors, children and grandchildren. Watch and pray. That's the bottom line. It won't be long. Thank you. I enjoyed and did benefit from the message today and the comments. I apologize for not hearing very well the question of Brother Will, so there was some misunderstanding. Thank you for your patience and good understanding of a declining old man. Thank you.
Thank you for the opening, Brother Walter, and for the comments. They were edifying. I appreciated that story, Brother DeJohn, about a briny salt water that would be too dangerous to swim. Did you say it was on a night with no wind or with wind? Windy night. You wouldn't be able to breathe. That's interesting. Yeah, I've heard that about the Dead Sea as well. Yeah. When Walter was sharing, something that caught my attention was his comment. I don't remember how you said it, brother. Something about how bearing fruit is work. It's hard work, and all these different pictures kind of flooded my mind. I thought about the spies who were sent into Canaan land and how they had to. I mean, they could barely carry that, the grapes back, and they had to set a pole between two men to carry that fruit, bring it back in. And from there, I started thinking about, Walter's truck farm, and if they have a terrible year, like I think you guys suffered a big loss on watermelon this last year. Is that right? Yeah. Well, yeah, other things too. Casualty of Roundup or something, right? So when they bear fruit, when his plants do well and bear fruit, there's work to be done. They have to load the trucks, they have to take it to the market, they have to sell it, and if they wither and die for whatever reason, there's not much to do. And I thought that's really true for a lot of different things. If you have children, the fruit of your loins, or the fruit that you have coming up, it's a lot of work to take care of it. It seems like we talk a lot about, and rightly so, the labor that goes into to trying to produce fruit. But when there is fruit, there is a lot of work to do. There's a lot to do. You have to continue on with it. You have to bear it where it goes. If we translate that to bearing fruit in God's kingdom, if we have converts or we build new relationships and we're trying to work together in the kingdom, those relationships are a fruit, and yet it requires maintenance. If we don't maintain that relationship, if we don't work on it and treat it with care and help it along, the fruit can wither and cease to be effective, cease to be good. And it's a good kind of, I guess my takeaway from Walter's comment is that bearing fruit is good, and even in bearing fruit there comes work. There comes more to do for God's kingdom. A few weeks ago, a man died who was 100 years old, and he's one of the most powerful and influential figures in geopolitics in the 20th century on into the 21st century. It was Henry Kissinger, extremely controversial, did things that are alternately praised and reviled by people, even things bordering on war crimes. But one of the things that he said, there was a quote in a write-up about him, and he said, every time, this is not verbatim, but every time you solve a conflict, every time you successfully navigate a challenge, some kind of difficulty, and it comes out positive, it's merely an admission ticket to the next, more complex conflict. I thought that was interesting. And especially in application to spiritual challenges the Lord gives us, it seems like certainly we face various conflicts, various storms that we have to trust Him in. But the older you get, if you're still alive and you're still in the Christian faith, it seems like those conflicts only become perhaps more intense. Praise the Lord. Thankful to be here this morning.
Psalm 3, I think Leroy, he's the song leader for Psalm 3, being on a shield and things. But I have just a few comments from, I didn't know we were going to, Brother Dwayne was sick. May the Lord grant swift recovery to him. But I have meditations I had during the week. A few bucks short. I got like 4 little meditations I wrote down. And hopefully will edify you and help me. I even have one this morning before I come to service. Now, if I can see my note. It's like last week. I can't even find. I did with it. Well, I'll have to just do it from thing. The first one was I was reading the book of Jeremiah, and Jeremiah 9, Jeremiah 8, where he says, don't take a wife. You're not going to have a wife and take children because the people, they have forsaken the law, and also they have built idols, broken cisterns. And he says, my anger is just too much. Even if Samuel and Moses stood in front of me, you don't have a chance, the Jews right now in Israel, in Judah. And he says, my anger, I'm not going to pity them. And so he tells them that. And then a few verses later, he says these words, I found the words, and I did eat them, and they became the joy of my heart. Something like Ezekiel and John says in Revelation, but he was uplifted. He says, I found the words, and I did eat them, and they became the joy of my heart. Winnell put that to a song years ago, and I remember that. And so, so the words are a joy to our heart. This morning, I usually have a half-hour devotion. Except on Sunday, I don't have time. You just do it quick. So I was eating, I put a thing on, and I got a Billy Graham Crusade, 1971, Dallas, Texas. And to me, it's a lot of good points, a lot of fluff too, and 55,000 people in the audience, and easy believism. But he was talking about a certain man that had a lot of miracles in his life from the Old Testament, and he went to Fish University. I never even heard that expression before, so I was so impressed with it, that's what I'm using it now. Fish University. Sasha, you know who that is? Who went to Fish University? Titus? He went to Fish University. Timothy. Titus, no? That could have been Bush University, yeah, but this is Fish University. He only went there for a few minutes, and he graduated with high honors. Walter Jr. Who went to Fish University? Brother Matthew. Who? You got it. Jonah. He went to Fish University. And I said, that's a good one. I like that. Everyone's smiling. Fish University. So for the rest of my life, I'll know what Fish University is. And another lesson I listened to was Follows the Way, and it was on the Beatitude for the 4th time. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And then in that, he uses so many, Finney was quoting so many verses about mercy. And the one that really struck me the most, and I know them, most of them, we know them, the Lord is merciful, gracious, long-suffering, talking about himself, Exodus 34. And then there's one that Yanni said the other day, I'm going to bring yours up too. But the one that Caravella mentioned was, that he said this verse in the Old Testament is even greater than worship. And I think, what is he saying? Come on, follow us away. This verse is either greater than worship or sacrifice. That's a clue. Worship or sacrifice. Anyone know what that is? Okay, it's in the prophet Hosea. Hosea 6 and verse 6. Can anyone quote that? I'll read it. I can quote it, but I'll probably paraphrase it. But Hosea 6:6. I didn't even, no wonder I couldn't find my notes. I took the songbook instead of the Bible. But anyway, Hosea 6 says this, I don't desire the knowledge of this or sacrifice. I desire mercy. I desire mercy. If someone wants to read that, Hosea 6:6, Max, I'm sorry. No wonder I couldn't find the thing. It says, please read that. I got one more minute to go. Okay, Hosea 6:6. Right, and in the story of the Good Samaritan, and at the end, he asked the priest, the one who tested him, says, who is his neighbor? And he said, the one who showed mercy. Even in Matthew 6, where it says, in the Sermon on the Mount, Walter alluded to 7 about be doers of the word. Matthew 6, where it said, and you must be perfect, as my heavenly Father is perfect. In Luke's Sermon on the Plain, it doesn't say perfect. What does it say, Robert? What? Well, no, not complete mature, no. But I thought you were going to say it. In Luke's Sermon on the Plain, in Luke 6, go ahead. Yep, you got to be merciful. So if you equate merciful with perfect, and so mercy is so important. And the one that Brother Yanni said was, we're talking about suffering or something, and everyone knows this. James 5:14. Think of the patience of Job. Okay, stop there. Okay, what's the next part of that verse say? Does anyone know that after the next part of that verse? Go ahead, Dejan. the Lord was, keep going, that the Lord is very pitiful and merciful. That's what it was. He's merciful. Everyone says that patience of Job. Yeah, but the theme of the book is that the Lord is merciful. And the last thing I'll say was, I thought of that one. It's a very popular one, and everyone can quote it, I think. 1 Timothy 3, in verse 16, it says, God was manifested in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, and received up into heaven. That's a beautiful song. Taylor, you could make a song out of it. God was manifested in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preaching to the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. Wonder when else made it up. When else, Yolanda? Most of my spirituality comes from Sarah, Yolanda, and Winnell, and you people too. The Lord be magnified.
Yeah, I just had some thought, just some good reminders for us all. Just some Old Testament things, good reminders. I thought recently, it just kind of hit me again how in the temple, the lamps couldn't go out. They had to stay lit all the time. And I had this other thought during the Exodus, when they were leaving Egypt. God told them when they killed the Passover lamb, they had to eat the whole lamb, and whatever was left in the morning, it had to be burned with fire. And it's just that really good picture that we have to eat all of Christ, so that there's none left over. And I had this other thought that when Moses went up to Mount Sinai, like no one could touch this mountain, and when he came back, his face shone, and they couldn't even look at Moses. Moses had to wear a veil over his face, like they couldn't even look at him. But then you get to the New Testament, which Paul says is like a more glorious ministration. And then when Jesus comes to Mary, he told her, don't touch me yet, for I haven't yet ascended to my Father. But then when he comes in his resurrected body, he told the disciples, like, hey, like, it's me, handle me. They could touch him. He said, a spirit doesn't have flesh and bones like you see me have. And like, it's just really amazing how you had this Old Testament and the New Testament, and the New Testament is more glorious, and they couldn't look at Moses, but yet we can touch and handle the Son of God. I actually had another thought this week. It could be debatable, but so I thought how much the Old Jerusalem is like woven with the church today, and how like the church could be the New Jerusalem that comes down from God out of heaven in Revelation. Jesus calls it the kingdom of heaven, and Jesus came down from heaven and brought this kingdom for us. And it's interesting, like Jesus said, behold, I make all things new. And like in the Old Testament Jerusalem, you had a temple, you had the priest, and that's we're a holy priesthood, and God is our temple, like it says there in Revelation. It said, and I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And I had this interesting thought, like there were elders at the gates in Jerusalem, and like the church has elders, and like there's still sacrifices, but the sacrifices have changed to spiritual sacrifices. And it said, and I thought that the New Jerusalem in Revelation, it says the foundations, in the 12 foundations were the names of the apostles. And Paul says that the church is founded on the apostles and the prophets. And that, and it says in Revelations that the city had no need of the sun or the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And this next verse, and the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day or night. And I thought, like Jesus said, like straight is the gate and narrow is the way, And in Revelation, it talks about, blessed is the man that keeps his commandments, that he may have a right to the tree of life and enter in through the gates into the city, which could very well be the kingdom here on earth that we have to enter into. All I had to share.
Yeah, it's been good to be here. Just had a few thoughts yet to share. I think we've heard a lot of different, just really important topics, but none of them were really just, expounded on all that much. But I did think John 15 touches on a lot of what we heard concerning, well, even just what you were saying, Walter, right now about being clean. I see a verse here in Matthew 15 that says, John 15. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. And then, of course, this is also the verse that goes with that song, I am the vine, ye are the branches. It starts in by saying, I am the vine, and my Father's the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away, and every branch that beareth fruit, he pruneth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself except it abide in the vine. No more can ye except ye abide in me. There is something really important about abiding in that vine. I'm sure it deserves a lot of explanation, but I'm just kind of been sitting here thinking about abiding in Jesus and just what that means. I think it's the thing that Peter probably really desired, that when he was out on the water, he just really wanted to abide with Jesus, and he really gets exposed with the fact that he ended up sinking, but I can just identify with that. Kind of like, you might say, like a sea of waves in between your situation and Jesus that makes you want to not step into it and just by faith go and abide with Jesus. But I think we're just called by the same things, but that they were called by. If those waves are different than they were for Peter, and we're in the boat and we're in a different kind of boat, we're still asked to just go and be and abide with Jesus. He's so much more secure than whatever boat we are in that's rocking around and unstable and unsure of whether it's going to be upside down the next minute. Jesus is that solid place to go to. I hope we know that just even by experience, more than just that His Word teaches it. I think there's something really important about having walked in faith and realized that, oh yeah, it sure works that way. We have a testimony now of abiding in Jesus because of a certain thing that we didn't know for sure how it would, what would result in it. But yeah, now we can say we truly did want to abide in Jesus, and it sure worked out. Okay, verse 5. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abides in me, and I in him, the same brings forth much fruit. Without me, you can do nothing. It's important to understand that without Him, we can do nothing. Because looking around, a lot of people do a lot of things without Him, But the things that pertain to His will, the will of the Father, the will of Jesus, those are the kind of things that, we just can't, bring forth much fruit like we're asked to if we're not in Him. There is that thing that people might try, or it's something to watch for. It's synthetic fruit, but I believe we need to be able to discern and know what's real and what's not. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch and is withered. And men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done to you. I think that helps me understand that verse, that statement he made earlier about, for without me you can do nothing. It needs to be contrasted with also the fact that with him we can do everything. And then if we consider, like, what is that everything, that has to be within his will, though. That's the realm of speech here, I believe. So if we abide in him, his word in us, we can ask what we want, what we will, and it will be done to us. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so you shall be my disciples. I really pondered on how qualified that the disciples were to be considered Jesus' disciples, and how their qualification was a little different than what I think I had expected already in the past. Their qualification to be a disciple was really not explained that much, but it's somewhat obvious in that they heard his call, and they found it worthwhile to hear that call and just go after him. It wasn't like they were qualified in that they had right then and there already produced or going through a lot that made that they produced a lot of fruit, but their willingness to go already made them disciples. But here I believe he's like going up the ladder of accountability a bit by saying, yeah, if you bring forth much fruit, that's now how you're going to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Continue you in my love. If you keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. You know, a lot that Jesus wants to bring to us are things that are somewhat already in swing, you might say, between Jesus and the Father. And we can take that example and apply it to us. The thing that, like, as the Father loved Jesus, or as I have kept my Father's commandment. Let me see if I can get that a little better. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. Yeah, so I think we can see the motivation Jesus had to obey his Father was that he loved him, and that sure should be the motivation that we obey and keep anything that Jesus said, is because we love him. These things have I spoken to you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. I remember a man at the university in Arkansas. For years he would come by when we were down there preaching, and he just on and on bring up that verse. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And that was to mean that it was okay for him to be involved in military service. And but what was interesting is that he hardly ever, I think, I don't remember for sure what we all tried to tell him, but I do remember that the following verse is what he didn't really, he didn't really make much out of that. It says, "If you are my friends if you do whatever I command you." And of course, that brings you on the platform of talking about what Jesus taught about loving enemies and doing good to those that hate you and despitefully use you, which then was against his cause. So I think laying down your life for a friend, that would be what Jesus. I believe Jesus did that for sure for like the whole world. He laid down his life, and that's quite like what he was saying here. Is he has the greatest love. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And so I think that's the example of love, and that's the ultimate of love. Jesus laying down his life for all humanity. Anyhow, that's some thoughts. I wanted to also read something different yet. This is a different topic. It has to do with mercy, because of something I was reading this week in Sirach. And then when Robert was talking about mercy, I thought this is something I want to read. Not to take away from mercy at all, but just the way it can go, and the way certain things get abused oftentimes. Okay, Sirach chapter 5, verse 3 says, "Do not say, you who have power over, do not say, who can have power over me? For the Lord will surely punish you. Do not say, I sinned. Yet what has happened to me? For the Lord is slow to anger. Do not be so confident of forgiveness that you add sin to sin. Do not say, his mercy is so great, he will forgive the multitude of my sins. For both mercy and wrath are within me, and his anger will rest on sinners. Do not delay to turn back to the Lord, and do not postpone it from day to day. For suddenly the wrath of the Lord will come upon you, and at the time of punishment you will perish. Do not depend on dishonest wealth, for it will not benefit you on the day of calamity." Anyhow, that's all I wanted to read out of that, even though the rest of the chapter is good. Chapter 5. Anyhow, that's some thoughts I had. I just wanted to add that, and and again, like that mercy, that thing about mercy is more valuable than a lot of things that people like to maybe bring to the Lord, or it's a very valuable thing, but it can be abused. God bless you all.
When you were speaking, Atlee, I just thought came to me about the soldiers and Jesus laying down his life for his friends, but he did far greater. He laid down his life for his enemies, and I wonder if you could bring that up to a soldier. Like, it's no greater love to lay down for your comrades, for your soldiers, but would you do it for your enemy? But Christ did so much more, because he did lay down his life not only for his friends, but also for all the ones that were against him. And it just brings a whole nother dimension to love and forgiveness, that while we were yet enemies, he laid down his life for us.
There's two men waiting for the train to come, and all of a sudden one of them, apparently because he had epilepsy, had an epileptic fit and fell down on the tracks. And the other man, who was a young student, jumped on top of him, pulled him into the tracks so they wouldn't be, across the tracks, and just enough time for the train to come. And he didn't even, obviously the man had no idea if being hunkered down on top of this man in that center of the tracks, that that the train would clear him. But thankfully he did. I mean, the train did. There was enough room that as it went over him, it passed over him without, killing him or the man under him. But the fact that he did that just really screams volumes of the capabilities of human beings to lay down their life for. Not that wasn't his friend. He probably didn't even know. I don't think he knew the guy, is the way the news report shows. But his father was very grateful that he saved his son. But yeah, things like that, I just think that's amazing. So I think we need to be careful when we say, no, if somebody's not a Christian, they can't do things like that. I just don't think that's true. I think every human being made in the image of God has the ability to do very selfless things and stuff. So I didn't know if that what you were saying there, Brother Robert, but I just think that story is just amazing because I don't think I could do that for somebody.
Good point, and I could be wrong. I just think that the Nazis who laid down their lives for themselves, or the North and the South in the Civil War, when the soldiers who laid down their lives for each other's soldiers, I don't think that's salt and light. That's what was my major point.
I guess one other thought I had was going back to what Brother Atley was saying. It's interesting the way that Jesus speaks. Many times things that he says are short and sweet, but they need unpacked. Like, they oftentimes leave me with, what did he mean by that? Like when Jesus said, as Brother Atley read there in John 15, without me you can do nothing. So the question is to anybody, Brother Atley, like anybody, and I feel like in the passage of chapter 14 and 15, he really made it clear what it means to be with him, and likewise to be without him practically. Like, how are you with him versus how are you without him, practically speaking? Not figuratively, where it's this big ambiguous thing that nobody really knows what that means, but it's a beautiful thing to say. No, practically, what does anybody have any thoughts? Like, what did Jesus, he told us in that passage, in my opinion, very clearly how to be with him versus without him. Do you have any thoughts, Brother Atley, or anybody else? Or what's that? So how is Jesus telling us to be without him versus with him? So how do you know if you're in his will? He's telling us right in this passage how to. Yes, exactly. So without me you can do nothing means that if you don't keep my commandments you can do nothing. And that's the way I see it. I think it's very clear. So, yeah. Sorry? Well, I'm just saying, in that passage, Jesus. Right. Right. I'm just saying, in that passage, the words of Jesus himself, what did he say? Not the whole Bible. That's an interesting conversation as well, but I'm just saying, in that passage, Jesus tells us how to be in him or how to be without him, and that is whether you obey his commandments or not. That's, in the context.
So I guess going back to sorry to go back and forth, but what I had said and what Paul had said was that in humanity, he's saying that, hey, for a righteous man, some would dare to die. And for a helpless life, I think there's many people who would throw themselves for a baby, or that particular man was having an epileptic fit, and he wasn't able to help him. And he was, for all intents and purposes, nobody knew. He seemed like just a regular, honest guy, right? But so say the guy that fell on the tracks was a known rapist and an axe murderer, and everybody knew who he was. Would anyone jump to save him? I guarantee they wouldn't. But Jesus would. And that in what he did on the cross that's the example. He's saying for a sinner, for someone who's deserving of death, he's willing to sacrifice. And that's what I'm saying. What would take supernatural for someone who is a known, who in the world's eyes justly would deserve, like what happened to Paul, when he got bit by the serpent. Like, well, he escaped death, and obviously, the punishment is here to get him. And that type of individual, if there was a choice to be made, like there was some catastrophe and only one person could be saved, and the Christian said, I'll stay and let this vile man be saved, that would take a supernatural thing. It is what the scriptures are saying, and I believe that's true.